Hey guys, this is Mr. Anthony, and in this video, I'm going to be showing you how we can use our graph paper that we're given on the STAAR test to create our own fraction strips to help us with our questions. So this colored picture right here is what fraction strips are, and the reason why we use them is to help us compare our fractions and find equivalent fractions. For example, with this, I can see that 1/2 is the same thing as 2/4. Oh, his hat fell off? Okay, I'll put his hat back on. I'm sorry. Right now, I've got a friend in here from another teacher as she's in a meeting right now, okay? They're all better? Alrighty. So, sorry about that. So, this is what fraction strips are. And so now I'm going to zoom out so I can show you what it's going to look like on our graph paper. Alrighty. So that's what it's going to look like on our graph paper. You can see the similarities of seeing the equivalent fractions between like 1/2 and 2/4, all the way down to 4/8. You can see thirds and sixths. And so with this, we can use that for equivalent fractions. We can use it for simply just comparing fractions. For example, if the question is, which is greater, 3/4 or 3/6, they can see that 3/6 goes to right here and 3/4 goes to right there. So you can clearly and easily see that 3/4 is longer and greater than 3/6. And so that's just a couple examples of how we're going to be using this, or how your student's going to be using this on the STAAR test. So before we can get started, we're going to need to get a couple numbers down, so we know just how many squares are going to be inside of each piece. So on the graph paper that we're going to be using on the STAAR test, there are 25 squares across. We're only going to be using 24 for our fraction bars, that way, or for our fraction strips. That way we can make each strip nicely because all of our factors and multiples are inside of 24. So for 1/2, we're going to use all 24. And then when we do 1/2, we're going to use 12 for each bar. For 1/3, we're going to use 8 for each bar. For 1/4, we're going to use 6 for each bar. For 1/6, we're going to use 4 for each bar. And then for 1/8, we're going to be using 3 for each bar. I also use this as an opportunity to do some division practice with them in class. I had them practice 24 divided by however many parts we needed. So if we needed to do the fourths, it was going to be 4 parts. And so then they make their 4 groups and then simply start going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And so they know that they're going to need 6 squares in each one of those for fourths. Alrighty. And so that was just some practice that we did in class that you might see on the back of their work. Alrighty. So that's all the numbers that we need. So this is a nice, clean, finished one. However, theirs may not look so nice and perfect as they're making it, just because they're making it. So they're going to have to do their own dots and lines and such. But as we get started with this, the first thing we're going to do is mark our one side down, because we don't need that side, or we don't need that last square. Remember, there's 25 all the way across, and we only need 24. So We're just going to squiggle that one off. You can even have your student draw a line down it. It helps everything look nice and neat at the end when you're done. Alrighty. And then we need to make the sections for our strips. So you can make your strip, I make mine 2 squares wide, but our paper is wide enough to do 3 squares each, but I just do 2. And so you can go across, doing 2, but it's easier for me to turn my paper and just go down. And you're going to need 6 sections for this. Perfect. All right. So the next thing that I do is I go down the side and I label what each fraction is. So I've got my 1 whole, my 1/2 line, my 1/3 line, my 1/4 line, my 1/6 line, and my 1/8 line. For 3rd grade, we don't get tested over, or they don't get tested over 1/5 and 1/10 or 1/12. And so we're going to go ahead and label this first one because it's the entire thing. It's the whole thing. So it's 1 whole. And now we're going to be doing half for the first one. So we can look back at our paper that we did earlier. And remember that there's 12 on each one. There we go. So I told them in class today as we went over this that they can just write on their thing because, I mean, it's their paper, it's pencil that they're using, they can erase it. So there's 12, draw their line because we had a couple friends that were miscounting. They don't need to do 12 again, but I mean, they can as a way to check their answer. To make sure that they did it evenly, because if they did it evenly, they should run out in that last square. And so we've done that. So each one of these is 1/2. So again, they can erase if they want to make it look nice and neat, but they don't need to. That's up to them and if they're being a perfectionist or not. But you know your student, so you need to have that conversation with them if you would rather they not spend their time fixing their paper. Alrighty, so the next one we're going to be doing is thirds, and there's 8 squares in each one for thirds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 line. Let me grab my pen. You know what? I'm going to go back to my marker just so y'all can see better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. So we've got all of our pieces here. I'm going to go ahead and draw these lines a little darker for y'all. There we go. And then each one of these is 1/3. There we go. So now we've got our fourths. Looking at our paper, there is 6 squares in each one for fourths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. We got our fourths done. And now we need to do our sixths. Each sixth has 4 squares in it. So 1, 2, 3, 4 line. 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 1, 2, 3, 4 line 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. So now going through labeling my sixths. And then we got one more to do our eighths. And there's 3 in each eighth. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. And then our eighths. And there we go. So this can be used for so many different things. They might be asked how many parts are there in a whole that's split into 8 pieces. I mean, I guess that was self-explanatory, but if they said like, what's the unit fraction for a rope that's split into 8 pieces? And so they can think about unit fractions split into 8 pieces. They can find their fraction bar that's split into 8 pieces and then use that unit fraction. There's so many different questions that they can answer just by building this before they start their test. Because they're not going to be given it on their test, but there's no rule against making it. All right. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions for me. All right, bye-bye.